Today on Mad Facts with Pat, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite ancient writing material, papyrus. Papyrus, sometimes known as Nile grass, is native to Egypt. Now, it's an aquatic plant that lives along the Nile River, and it's one of the few places in the world where it's known to exist. Now, the process of making papyrus, or we're just going to call it papyrus paper, was done in ancient Egypt sometime around 3000 BCE and continued to be used all the way up to approximately 800 to 1000 CE. So that's a run of 4,000 years, making papyrus one of the longest lasting modes and materials for writing. Now, while it's sometimes referred to as papyrus paper, it is not paper by the modern context. What it is a plant-based fiber. Now, how do you make papyrus? Well, first of all, you have to go find yourself some papyrus plants and cut them off at the stalks. They're long, and here's a picture. Once you've done that, you actually take these long stalks and shave off, using a sharp knife, the outer green husky part of the plant. And you actually save those because those are used for basket making and other materials. Very fibrous, very strong. You take that white pulpy center, which again is somewhat like sugarcane, so you could chew on it. It's kind of sweet, but don't do that. Now what you do is you take those strips and you kind of smash them flat. And what that helps do is increase their strength as you crush those fibers down into thinner segments. You take those thin strips out and then you take them and soak them in water. Now, once you've had them in the water for 1 to 3 days, you can pull those strips out. And what you do is at this point, you start forming a lattice of strips this way, vertically and horizontally, where they're all matching up to each other, and then forming this matrix. And then you gently start rolling and pressing them together again. This forces the adherence between the strips running vertically and horizontally, and then along the edges of the strips that are touching. After that, when you got a big enough piece, it's time to actually prepare them and dry them, which requires you to then lay them out as flat as you can and place drying elements, typically linens or other things that were absorbent in the ancient world, both in the front and back, and change those as necessary over, again, about a 3-day period for the papyrus to actually form and dry to where it can be used as a writing material. But you're not done quite yet. Before you can actually use it, you need to run a stone over it to thin it out even more flat and take off any of the rough edges. So there is a final preparation process as well. What you're left with is a very strong fibrous material that's very easy to write upon. It comes with its own natural lines. So ancient scribes could write across using these strips as guidance, so they didn't have to pre-line their paper in many cases, or pre-line their text. I keep saying paper, but we know it's papyrus, and I'm sure some will get crazy about that later. Papyrus was extremely important in the Roman Empire. Not only was it important as a writing material, which was extremely important for the administration of the state. How else do you write letters? But it was also important as an economic interest as well. So the Roman state actually helped set up, during their era, plantations where papyrus was grown, manufactured, and then distributed throughout the Roman Empire. And again, this all occurring in Egypt, which made that province of the Roman Empire quite wealthy. But Pat, explain scrolls real quick. Well, one thing about papyrus is it naturally has a tendency to curl. Just fibrous materials and the plants and the drying process, the manufacturing process, leaves it to have a desire to want to fold in on itself. So ancient peoples, rather than fighting that process, actually utilized it as a form of storage. So what happened to papyrus? Well, papyrus died out for a long time, but in the 1950s there was a desire to bring back the techniques and practices and make it commercially available again. And so now you can pretty much go into any modern craft store and buy papyrus that was, although it's a modern manufacturing technique, it basically looks and feels the way ancient papyrus did as well. And that's been another Mad Fact with Pat.